There has been some extraordinary events in Washington, D.C. In the last 24 hours that have raised eyebrows for all sorts of reasons. But something else that has happened is very interesting because there are some senators and Congress people who are making a plea to our armed forces. And I guarantee that this plea is not sitting well with the president and certainly not with Pete Hegseth, the Secretary of War. But this is a little bit of what they are, the message that they are sending to our armed forces.
Americans trust their military.
But that trust is at risk. This administration is pitting our uniformed military
and intelligence community professionals
against American citizens. Like us, you all swore an oath
to protect and defend this Constitution.
Right now, the threats to our Constitution aren't just coming from abroad,
but from right here at home. Our laws are clear. You can refuse illegal orders.
You can refuse illegal orders.
You must refuse illegal orders.
No one has to carry out orders that violate the law
or our Constitution.
We know this is hard and that it's a difficult time to be a public servant.
But whether you're serving in the CIA,
the Army,
or Navy,
the Air Force,
your vigilance is critical.
And know that we have your back.
Well, one of the elected officials you saw delivering that message to the armed forces is Senator Alyssa Slotkin, and she is joining us now to talk about what prompted this. And also, I'm dying, Senator, to get your reaction to Pete Hegseth's critique of this video. So welcome back to TMZ Live.
Thanks for having me. Thanks for talking about this stuff.
So I kind of want to dive into the peril of this, because I remember boot camp where they talked about absolutely always obeying orders. If somebody believes something is illegal and they end up defying the order, and then say the Supreme Court says, no, it was legal all along.
Where are they?
Are they subject to discipline?
Yeah, I mean, look, let's talk about the law here. The Uniform Code of Military Justice, which is something that every single person who wears the uniform is trained in. That's the code of conduct for the military. It says very clearly that you can refuse an illegal order. Now, you're right. This is a very hard thing to do, but let's put this in real terms, like specifics. In the last Trump administration, the president asked his then Secretary of Defense to, quote, shoot at the legs of unarmed protesters outside the White House as a way to get them away, right? Move them. That is, to the credit of the Secretary of Defense, he said, we're not going to do that. And he kind of tap danced and got him off of that. That's an example of an illegal order. And I give that Secretary of Defense a credit for what he did. But that's the kind of thing we're talking about. And I think it is difficult. But the video we put together, we did because of the folks in uniform who were quietly reaching out to us saying, hey, you know, what if I'm asked to do something that I think is illegal? What if I'm involved in something? Can I be held personally liable for that kind of stuff? So we did the video because all of us are either former intelligence or former military, and we had these people reaching out to us saying, I don't know what to do if the commander-in-chief orders me to do something that is illegal.
So you said that there are people in the military who are reaching out to you. Yeah. What orders were they referring to specifically that they were questioning whether or not this was legal?
To be honest, I mean, I served alongside the military my entire life in 3 tours in Iraq. They are trained to fight enemies abroad, right? Protect the homeland from enemies abroad. They're not trained in police techniques. They're not trained in arresting, detaining American citizens, crowd control, raids on homes. And they were worried that they could be asked to do those things, that protests could get bad in a place like Chicago, and they could be asked to do these things. And so there's a lot of trepidation, particularly around the idea that they would be engaged with American citizens on American soil, which is, by the way, like as fundamental of an American trait, right? I mean, we are America, the United States of America, because we got rid of a king and an abusive military was, you know, had his thumb on us until we overthrew them. So I think there was a lot of concern about that. There's a lot of questions about the strikes in the Caribbean, right? And kind of the legal framework there. A lot of reports about people saying, you know, going to their local JAG and saying, can I get some top cover here? Is this okay? So these are the kinds of things we've been hearing. So we just wanted to speak directly to them because we haven't been able to actually hear directly from the Secretary of Defense and the Secretary of Homeland Security on how they justify putting the military and federal law enforcement in our cities.
So I'm thinking, though, if you're, say, in the Air Force and you're ordered to drop a bomb on a boat off of Venezuela, you're kind of in a position. I mean, personally, you know, I'm an, in case you didn't notice, an old guy, and I remember Lyndon Johnson in the Gulf of Tonkin resolution during the Vietnam War. So I remember all of that. And it's complicated because, you know, the president says, I have the right to do this by executive order. Congress says, no, you don't. And we have a Supreme Court that has surprised us from time to time recently. So you got this guy flying an airplane at 600 miles an hour. And he has to figure out, do I drop this bomb or do I defy the order? That seems a tough call.
Yeah, I think you wouldn't have that issue mid-flight, right? I think what we're hearing is that folks are seeking out their local JAG, you know, their legal authority and their unit before being asked to do something, before they take off. And they're just saying, hey, could you give me some top cover here? Could you tell me and assure me that these things are legal before I do them? And I think what we're certainly hearing is from folks who are being sent from one National Guard, you know, in one state to another National Guard or to another state against the will of that governor, and saying, like, what if I'm asked to detain someone? What if I'm asked to, you know, go along with police and perform police actions? Like, how do I do that? They're struggling with these issues. And I think the thing that is really agitating people in uniform, but also our veterans and former intel folks, is, you know, the military is the most respected institution we have in this country. And the idea that American citizens could ever be scared of a uniformed military in the streets, it really just turns people's stomach. It turns my stomach.
So for rank and file soldiers, you're saying they're going to their JAG in their unit. Is that the final word for them? Whatever that JAG officer says to them is the proper application of the law at that point? Is that what they need to go by?
They go by their JAGs. Some of them are doing memos for the record, kind of a verbal retelling, or I'm sorry, a written retelling of what their role was, just to say, hey, I'm just documenting this in case I ever get in trouble later. So yes, most people go to their JAG and they're making sure they have top cover. You know, I think there's a lot of concern that, especially with this administration, you know, the senior folks, the Secretary of Defense will go on to other things. The president will never be held accountable, but rank and file folks could be held accountable later on. So I think there's just a lot of nervousness and stress in the system. But it all comes back to this idea that the military should be seen as an exclusively positive thing by the American people, and they don't like the idea that Americans could be, you know, seeing them in this negative light.
Right.
So finally, I just want to ask you a question. Given the climate right now, you know, Donald Trump's now called Marjorie Taylor Greene a traitor. He's gone after people criminally for kind of eye-popping things. And are you concerned that you and your other 5 colleagues could end up getting in the crosshairs of Trump and the Justice Department in terms of, say, I don't know, the Insurrection Act, where they say that what you're doing is you're undermining the government? Is that something you guys have discussed? Is it an issue?
Yeah, most of us have discussed, certainly with our own teams, and most of us have kind of a break glass plan in case they come after us. I'll be honest. I mean, I've watched them go after my colleagues. I've watched them go after people, you know, who they just don't agree with outside of government. And so anyone at this point has to be realistic about that. And some of the first texts I got when the video started going viral was, "Are you safe? Are you okay?" Right? And I think that to me is just a sad moment in our politics. But it's not going to shut me up, and it's not going to shut up others who have served. And because then that's what they want. They want fear to be used as an effective weapon so that critics of this administration shut the hell up. That's the point. And if we give in, then they win. And I'm just not going to do that.
Well, Secretary Hegseth has referred to the video as stage 4 TDS, Trump derangement syndrome. which maybe seems like a laughable response to it, and maybe that's all it becomes, and there's no reason for you to be concerned. But I know what you're saying. I get why people reaching out are saying,
Oh, yeah.
are you okay?
Oh, yeah. We so appreciate
Thank
the
you so
time.
much,
Thank you
Senator.
so much.
Of course. Thanks, guys.
Thanks.